I got cut off on the previous video. So let's go back to 37 and 38 where we're talking about reams of paper. It's going to be the same process that we just went through for problems 35 and 36. So there's 4 steps in the process. We're going to start with step 1, of which there are 2 parts. Excuse me. So first we're going to calculate the units completed and then started and completed, which we're going to use in part 2. So the beginning units are 35,000. The units started in the period are 93,000, and the ending we're going to subtract to get the units completed during the period, which is 108,000. Now we're going to figure out what we started and completed. So we know that we started the beginning work in process in the previous period, so we have to subtract that for FIFO purposes. So that gives us 73,000 units started and completed during the period. Now we're going to use this information to calculate our excuse me, equivalent units. So our equivalent units are 35,000 times 60%. This information is from the previous example. So let's go back here. So our beginning work in process is 40% completed. That means that we have 60% remaining that needs to be completed. So it's going to be the 35,000 in beginning work in process times 60% that still needs to be completed. And then we take our units started and completed from above. And then our ending work in process, which is the 20,000 times the 65% that we completed during this period, gives us equivalent units of 107,000. Sorry. Now we're going to calculate our cost per equivalent unit. So for FIFO purposes, we assume that the 89,170 is automatically going to cost of goods sold. So to calculate equivalent units, we're going to focus on the 394,830 as the production costs. And we're going to use the equivalent units we just calculated above, divide those two, gives us 369 per unit. And then for the final step, we're going to calculate our ending work in process, which is 20,000, times the percentage completed, which is 65%. So 20,000 times 60% completed, and our equivalent units of 369 gives us the cost of production that remain in our ending work in process of 47,970. And then to calculate the cost of goods manufactured, we look at our total cost for the period. So the 89,170 plus the 394, and we subtract what remains in our ending inventory. And our cost of goods manufactured is going to be 436.30. Now we do the same thing under our weighted average method, and we start to identify the differences in step 1. So again, beginning work in process plus those completed during the period minus our ending gives us 108. Units completed. Now remember, for weighted average, it's going to assume that everything was done during this period. So it was started and completed during this period. So we're assuming no beginning inventory. So it gives us 108. The 108 here is different than the 73,000. That's where the two methods start to differ. Now we calculate the equivalent units. So again, beginning inventory we assume is going to be 0 because everything was completed and started during this period. And then our ending inventory is the 20,000 times 65%. So it gives us equivalent units of 121,000. Production costs, to calculate the cost per equivalent unit, we're going to go back and we're looking all of the cost because we're assuming it was all incurred during this period. There was no beginning inventory. And our equivalent units are 121. Divide those two, cost divided by equivalent units, gives us a cost of $4 per equivalent unit. And now we calculate our production costs and ending inventory and our cost of goods sold. So 20,000 times 65% remains in ending inventory. Our cost per equivalent unit is $4. So the cost of ending inventory that remains in ending inventory is 52,000. Again, we're looking at our total costs less what remains in ending inventory equals our cost of goods manufactured that moves on to the next step. And again, these two differ because of the way that we calculate our units started and completed and our equivalent units, which assumes zero beginning inventory. I'm going to do the overhead video in a separate video so that it's not too long.